Okay, so if we are going to move from striving to thriving and ban burnout, do our part to shift society, then best we know what our human needs really are. So when I created this content, I went to sources like neuroscience, psychology, biology, the Bible, and really looked at what are our fundamental human needs, personal, emotional, and social, and how do they work together. And so you'll find in this section a framework for what I call your personal story framework, because we are very unique. We're all living a very different story. And it's important to go get what we need for ourselves. Well, let me reframe that. Not necessarily go get it, to listen to what we need for ourselves, because we are all unique. And we can't just go copy the latest Instagram program or look over at somebody else that's having a great life and think, I'm going to copy what they're doing. We have to feel our way through it and acknowledge our unique needs. So, what you'll see in this framework is personal, emotional, and social, the way it's broken down. But these are the fundamental things that everybody needs, but everybody's in a little different place in their story about what they've already been taken care of and what may need some more attention or awareness. So in each box on this framework, as I go through them or after I go through them, I want you to rate yourself and how you feel you're doing in that area on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 meaning the worst, 10 meaning the best. So let me give you a little bit of what I think the difference between a 1 and a 10. 1 is just the worst, okay? 10 is blissed out good. And 5 is that meh emoji, with the flat mouth and the flat eyes, just meh. So that gives you, that's my technical way to break down 1 to 10, because we're just feeling our way through some of these things, y'all. Okay. So I'm going to describe each of these and how they work together so you can rate yourself. And this will give you a bit of a baseline, because we are still looking for ways to improve, and our brains we're rooted in this control, measure, optimize. So I'm gonna meet you where you are, and I'm going to give you something that you can baseline it and then look for ways that you can measure and improve until we get more comfortable being our inner thrive guide and just kind of knowing what we need. Okay. So in the first 3 boxes of this framework, this is our personal meaning. And we say personal reflection because you need to identify and work on this for yourself, to reflect on who am I? What do I need? So we're not having somebody else tell us what we need. We're going to sit with ourselves and know ourselves. Reflection. So the first box is our basic biological needs: food, water, rest, and energy. So food, the quality of our food being nutrition, and leaving out all the chemicals and the stuff that isn't really food. The way I like to say it is, if it came from the ground or has a mother, that pretty much boils it down to what is the basics of nutrition. Hydration, rest. We haven't prioritized it well enough. In energy, are we getting enough movement? This doesn't mean I need you to be at the 5 a.m. boot camp class every day. This means, are we just getting up and moving our bodies in a way that allows it to regenerate cells and be healthy? So how are you doing there? The next box is how we speak to ourselves. It's as important as, are you getting enough water and lunch? I mean, this is a real, for many people, the low-hanging fruit to have significant improvement pretty quickly by being aware of this one. So optimism. Are we looking at things through the lens of, I'm excited to build my life, I'm looking forward to things? Or are we always in that negativity bias, which we're going to talk about more next month? our ability to practice faith, stillness. We're going to talk about this one a lot because it's one of the first things that we've given up is our ability to be still because we're in this frenetic pace. And then the practice of gratitude, which is also one that we're going to use in a very meaningful way as we move through. So, how are you doing in how you speak to yourself, being optimistic, using your faith, and gratitude, all these things? How are you doing on a scale of 1 to 10? And then the final one in personal reflection, where we get our meaning, is what are our unique gifts, talents, experiences, abilities, our personality, our style? We're all unique down to our fingerprints on purpose for a purpose. And it's up to us to know us and to honor that uniqueness. So, how well are you doing at knowing you at a really deep level? Remember, the first stage of burnout is to prove ourselves, which means we kind of try to be who everybody wants us to be. Mm-mm. We're going to work through you knowing you. And I'm going to hold up the mirror and help you see you in a way that I want you to fall in love with your story and be so excited to continue to write it from your frame of reference, from your perspective. Okay. So those are the first three. This is about who am I? My personal reflection. Now, that is our meaning. Our meaning is for a purpose in the social construct. How am I going to serve others and how are others going to serve me? How are we going to connect? Because we're moving away from control and we're moving into connection. And y'all, we got several more months to work through all the dynamics of that because our control-based perspective on things, it runs deep, y'all. So it's fine. Everything's fine. We're all going to work on this together. So the first box that shows up in social, in our connections, is to be psychologically safe, which means safe with our emotions, our ideas, our mistakes. Are we in a community, a group where we are safe to be ourselves? And I like to look at this from the perspective of at home and at work, because many of us have situations where we may feel safe at home, but not at work, or we may feel safe at work, but not at home. But we are one person. We are not a work person and a home person. We're just one person. And so being able to create the conditions for our lives, remember that's thriving. We create the conditions to grow, prosper, and flourish. Is creating the conditions for our lives where we are safe, not just handrails on the stairs, physically safe, but psychologically safe. Because the majority of our work today isn't physical work like it was back in the day of the factory. Now, some of you may still have a factory environment. That's fine. It's great. That's everybody I was raised by was either a farmer or a factory worker. So nothing wrong with that. But many of us that are here work in offices where our threat to our safety is really in how we feel about ourselves. Can we be ourselves? So how are we doing there? The next one is our ability to give and receive our unique gifts and talents as part of the social construct. So when I know who I am and what I'm good at, and I bring that into my work, I want you to see that as, oh, I have this gift and I'm going to come to work and I'm going to give this gift to you by doing good in my work. That's how I'm going to serve you. And I'm going to look at all of your unique gifts and talents because we're all very different. And I'm going to recognize that because you're good at something that I'm not, I need you to give that gift to me so we can all work together. Kind of go back to the farm example. Some of you are planting crops, some of you are making clothes, some of you are growing herbs, some of you are diagnosing medicine. We need all those differences to come together and work together. And if we see that as giving and receiving of gifts, then we don't feel this need to prove ourselves. I always have to get it right. We can show up as ourselves as an act of service. Okay. How are you doing there? And seeing things that way and being able to show up that way, being able to receive help from others because they're good at something that we're not. And then ultimately, the top box of thriving, as I like to call it, and you'll hear me reference it in future sessions as VRI. It's our value, relevance, and impact. Our value is I know who I am. I know my worth. I know my gifts and talents, and I'm taking care of myself. So I'm ready for it to be valuable to you. I'm not so exhausted and depleted that I can't show up as my best self. That's value. So when we show up at work and we know our value, then we look for ways to be relevant. Relevant means I understand what's going on around me, context. You're going to hear that word from me a lot. I know what's going on around me with my team, with the industry, with the business, with my clients. I know what's happening, so I know how to connect to it in a very relevant way, because the needs of the business, the needs of our clients, the needs of our colleagues, our family, it changes and adapts. And so I know how to kind of read the room and be relevant in that way. One of the silly examples I give to make this point is if you were the best sandcastle builder in Destin, Florida, your skills in sandcastle building were just spot on. And you relocated to Indianapolis, Indiana. There's not a lot of sand in Indianapolis, Indiana. That people aren't building sandcastles. So your skills aren't going to be as relevant in Indianapolis as they were in Destin, Florida. So then you've got some choices. Am I going to look at the skills that I was using to build sandcastles and find a way to use them differently where there's no sand? I don't know, maybe it's snow. Or am I going to say, maybe I shouldn't be in Indianapolis because I'm not, my skills aren't relevant here. Again, you're creating the conditions, so you get to choose where you bring your gifts and talents. Or maybe you understand that those talents can be used in other more relevant ways for your situation. I know, kind of a silly example, but to make the point that relevance means I know what's happening around me and I'm going to show up in a way that I know how to connect to it. So we're not waiting for someone else to change the conditions for us. We're understanding that we need to show up and find relevancy in our work, in our life. And when we do that, then we can have an impact. And we want to have an impact both to the human needs as well as the business needs. So when we're looking for impact, we're saying, here's how I am impactful in the culture, the team, the way I'm serving family, humans. And here's how I'm impacting the business, the bottom line of the business. And in future sessions, we'll talk a whole lot more about the money-making model of the business and how to do that. So how are you doing there in knowing your VRI, value, relevance, and impact? And you'll see at the bottom that emotional runs throughout all of these because we are human beings having an emotional experience. All of our decisions are based on emotions. We just validate them on facts. So I'm going to help you. And as I hold up that mirror to help you see you, I am going to help you acknowledge those emotions at home and at work. They're often data for us and what we need and what we're not getting. So we're having an emotional experience as a human. So this framework is meant for you to check in once in a while on how are you doing? How are we doing at meeting some of these needs or not meeting some of those needs? So now you'll have a 1 to 10 score in each one of these areas, and that'll help you know where you can pay a little bit more attention to some of the changes that you might choose to make for yourself.